Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is a show where we talk about the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. It's going to be an interesting day in the recording booth here, mainly because while I'm recording, I am cleaning up my heroclix area, and I got new storage, so I am putting things into new storage, and so you'll hear things like rattling around. It's just one of the main reasons like the show was delayed is, in all honesty, like my nephew is more important than this show, and he's 5 months old now, so he was in a very interesting mode yesterday when we had him over at the house. Since I think I've said on the show, my brother does lawn care, pretty much landscape architecture, and my sister-in-law was out of town, and the weekend is pretty much his like big like I gotta get stuff done days. So in particular Saturday, so my mom and I were watching watching my nephew, and so I couldn't record with him around because it would be, hey, listen to me for like 2 moments, and then he's going to cry because we're not moving around. And if anyone that's ever had children or has children or has watched like infants, they pretty much know, like you take lots of car rides or walks and whatever else, because their ability to be bored rather fast is uncanny, like Professor X level uncanny. So it was interesting. It's fun, and then of course I head out on the Saturday nights. So of course there's no recording then. So, but today we're going to do something cool. We're going to do a little bit economy and a little bit of what's in your head, and sort of assessing the meta as we go forward. I wanted to initially talk about like, hey, here are the pieces that you need to definitely look at and go to in the meta right now. The problem is, like, when I had a team meeting the other day with the other people in Phoenix Nest, we hit this weird spot because we started to understand that on the attacker front, not much has changed. So there's really no like new information. There's just what new shenanigans can I do now, and that's something else that I might have to look at in the future. So I would say be on the lookout for that. If I don't touch on it in a while, just email me. That's better. And just be like, hey, Dark Logos, what about that new modern age shenanigans, homie? What about that? What should we be looking at? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So so let's talk about some economy stuff. If you haven't noticed, like episode 150 went completely sideways, like so sideways you could call it. You're playing a level of Mario. Like that's how bad it went. So what ended up happening, there was a whole bunch of stuff that got sent out, like in emails, and I'm like, oh, I got it, cool. So I deleted the emails, and then it's like, okay, well, let me upload my show, and then the shows, just FYI, before they get converted into Flash, they're about like 2 to 3 gigs a show, just because of the compression that I use. Video, that can get a lot larger than that. So I usually delete the episode in the original audio after I finish recording. So I thought I had uploaded everything fine and dandy. Then I get messages like on the YouTube channel like, Dark Logos, UTs, and what the heck is going on? And stuff like that. And for some reason, the wrong episode got uploaded. And not only that, it's like 2 minutes. So I'm sitting there like, oh crap. And then I had Tulsa last weekend, so there's definitely no recording then. And yeah, so there's problems. So anyway, there was a question I remember. I think Matt Miller emailed me. I may be wrong on this one. It has been a while. But pretty much it was like, hey, I have a Predator that I borrow. When is it a good time for me to buy a Predator, considering that when I need it, I can just borrow it. And I would say, sort of like I initially recorded, it's nice to have your own stuff. Because if you come into a competition where both of you all are competing for the same thing, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I really want to borrow that Predator, and it's like, well, I'm using it, then you're sort of out of luck, and then you don't want that sort of bitterness hitting, your friendship that, you've been borrowing something, and all of a sudden when it mattered, you can't borrow it because, you don't know if it's a slight to you or if it's unintentional that they are just like, no, you can't use it, or if they just are using it so that you can't, and they have a legitimate reason to hamstring you or stuff like that. So you got to watch that. So usually, like when I borrow from people, 9 times out of 10, it's for a rock, which most of the locals that I hang out with, we're sort of on the same page. Like we roll as a team, like for locals. So like if we roll to, actually, I take that back. It's not a rock. Like usually they're like a bigger advertised tournament. Like we went to Springfield, and so if I needed to borrow anything, I know I could have. Even when we went to this last rock, it was myself and another person, Jake. I could have borrowed some stuff. There was some builds that I was considering that I would need to borrow some stuff, but in the end, it worked out. So I usually say, like, in the case of stuff that you're using frequently, just talk to your friend and be like, yo, hey, I got this stuff for trade for the Predator. Since I use it a lot and you don't, here's these things. And then if they're down for that, cool. If not, just go to eBay and sort of ask yourself, the frequency of me playing this is X. I am going to play X this many times. Okay, and then you realize, like, okay, if I spend $50 on a piece and I'm going to play it 3 times, then it's probably not a good idea that I'm going to buy this piece. It's a bad investment. But if you're like, I have this piece and I'm probably going to play it pretty frequently, then yeah, go ahead and do it. I will tell you this from being the Grand Master of the parade of the Island of Misfit heroclix. I got bags of crap that I will never play. Just bags of it. And you don't want to get to that stage. Like, I have so much stuff that I'm going to have to, like, go through again and just be like, giveaway. Check this out, homies. Here's all this stuff. And I'm not saying it like, I got ducats, dog. But it's more along the lines of, if you play enough seals and you bought a case and all the other crap, you have way too much stuff. So, I mean, that's one of the main reasons why economically I've always sort of endorsed, like, get a CUR, don't buy a case, don't do that. Let somebody else take the financial risk and financial reward for it. If you realize that you're going to play maybe a third of that set, like, that's what happened to me in Flash. I was like, I'm not going to play this. I'm not going to play like over half of this stuff. So I just went to one seller, found all the stuff that I was looking for, and was just like, these things, it's less than the CUR. I'm never going to play the rest of it. I'm done. And then that's what you do. You have significantly less pieces, but you have what you're actually going to play. And in the sad case of Savitar, I never really got around to him because he never became meta in my area. So there you go. So there's some things out there for you to think about and consider if you're going to go down that route. But I would also say, like right now with the Nick Fury set, people love generics, and so this is one of those weird times where buying blind boosters is good because it gives you a good amount of trade fodder for the future. Because if you're like, I got all these Hydra guys that I'm never going to play, then yeah, you have trade fodder for other guys that like Hydra guys. And trust me, generics are better than super rares. 3 generics are better than any super rare for people that are hardcore into a faction. I will tell you this firsthand because they will see XYZ generic and they're like, that's going to fit perfect with my shield army, my Hydra army, my AIM army, my blah 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 army, my Gotham Underworld army. Like they'll look at them and they'll drool because the inner Cobra Commander kicks in, and then they're like, well, I know on the secondary market I can get 3 of them for like $8, but I really have this team I want to play next week. So if I just give you this Superman, will you just give me all your generics? And you'll be like, yeah, here you go. And you'll be looking at like, okay, I'm going to play this Superman, or at least I can sell him on eBay for $30. And I gave him maybe $10 worth of generics. So, I mean, that goes down frequently. And there's just some people like, that's just your crack. Like I'm gonna be honest. Like, there's just some teams that's like that's just your crack. Like I'm a 90. I grew up mainly in the 90s. X-Men is my crack. Kids that grow up nowadays, Avengers is their crack. Okay, so when someone's like, hey buddy, do you want a fix? You're like, yep, top me up. And sometimes you gotta watch that. Because you gotta realize being the dealer in the Fiend is the 2 sides of the same coin, and you possess it. If that went a little over your head, just take a step back. There are times where you are dealing someone else crack, and other times you are taking that hit. So, but anyway, sort of going back, I think it's always a good idea to have your own stuff. Definitely if it's something that you're frequently using. And if you're noticing, like I said before, if you're noticing like, I'm not doing that too much, then you can wait. Now, should you buy like entities anytime soon? Well, your window for buying entities is sort of drying up because we're heading into World Cup, and anybody that's really serious is heading to World Cup. And if they don't have entities, they're buying them. And I'm not talking about the guys that went to Origins. Those guys have access to their stuff. There's a different group of cats that don't go to Origins just because of access. They go to World Cup. Your heavy rock people, like I said, it's a whole different story. So they have their stuff. That's what they're buying for. And the people just getting into rock, they're buying stuff now as well. So you're looking at maybe after October, but then you're going into Christmas gifts. So unfortunately, you're not looking at something until like maybe February. And then at that stage, you have a choice, because if you want to say, hey, I think this is going to be retired and I'm going to wait a little bit more and see if the market crashes, you can. And you would end up waiting until next June. But even still, everybody that's thinking like you're thinking is going to be doing the same thing. They're waiting for retirement for them to be worth like almost bupkis, for someone just to sell off all their entities and then be like, yo, here you go. I'll sell you an entity for $30, $45 each. Now, I'm going to also be honest to you about the entities. The entities will not go lower than $30 each. I'm just being 100% real with you. Just for how many there are, the amount of product you have to buy to get all of them, And then just the pure fact that even in Golden Age, they're freaking useful. They're so useful. So I really, really, really don't see you getting a whole set for less than $200. I don't see that at all. Definitely Parallax. Parallax will probably taper at 80 at best after he retires. And an Ion is BS. An Ion will probably be 85 to 90 at lowest. The only way I see them going lower is if something more BS than Entities gets released. And I don't think WizKids is going to do that yet. They haven't had a reason to have a profit dip. And see this, side note, okay. When WizKids has gotten afraid of profits or risk, they're doing something new and they don't know how it's going to be accepted, they always make stuff that's OP. Way OP. And so because they make stuff that's way OP, when they're questionable about something that's coming out, look at any product that they're doing. Any product that they've done in the last 5 years. They, like when they came back with Hammer of Thor, major power creep. Major power creep. When they're like, oh, we have a market now, Brave and the Bold is a lot weaker. Okay? When they're like, oh, we don't know how team bases will sell considering you have to buy all this crap. They made them stupid level OP. AVX, you have to buy a starter. Magic, OP. Cyclops, OP. That Thor at 100, OP. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that's just like, yep, this is just dumb level stuff. So, unless there is something coming down the pipe where I'm like, yeah, their market, product has just really gone down. People really aren't buying. People really aren't interested in the game. They'll come back and they'll say something like, hey, check it out. Embodiment infinity gems. These things don't count as relics, and you're able to play them as resources, but you have to attach them to a character. Like I see them doing some BS like that, or like Blessing of Living Tribunal, or something like dumb stuff like that. That's what I could see them doing if things went sideways. But I don't think they're going to remake something to the scale of the Entities anytime soon. Now, you could say, well, what about Jocasta? Jocasta is hella toned down. Like, really look at it. And I mean, I would even say this, like, look at the Entities too. The two most expensive point entities are the two most OP entities. And that's Parallax and Ion. I mean, I even talked to one of the designer guys, and I said, you have a problem with entity possession because automatically some entities are way stronger just because of how the point value works in heroclix. Period. It doesn't matter what function that they do. You made them different point values. So I'm spending 25 points for an unequal amount of power. So let's take for example. I have the entity. He comes in at 150, and Ion comes in at 225. Now, functionally, who's way better? Ion. Now we look at Proselyte, and we compare Proselyte with Ophidian. Now, Ophidian is 185. Proselyte is 155. Look at the stats. Look at the abilities. Which one is stronger? Which ones use a lot more? Okay, let's... shoot. Stuff is falling. Falling, I say. Okay, so let's look at our next little buddy here in our comparison. Okay, so we got Parallax. Parallax comes in at 250. Let's look at Predator. Predator comes in at 175. Who's more OP? Okay, which one do you see more often? Now, you might say, well, Black Hand is awesome. He's the only one that offers running shot, and I played him, and he's not super expensive. But yes, he's also the only one that doesn't have cosmic keyword, and he's also one of the few ones that you're asking yourself, how can I use him if I'm not running a Black Lantern theme team? Like, he has too much stuff that just doesn't work for you. So you look at it and you start to realize, like, okay, it's a good idea to wait, but at the same time, in waiting, I need to, probably save up my ducats. Now, if you're determined that your venue doesn't play a lot of Golden Age, or Silver Age is what most other folks call it, then don't waste your time. Just keep borrowing from your friends. All right, so let's move on to a little bit of what's in your head. And this is about going to that next level of heroclix play and about what's required of being on the next level. Like, I just came back from Tulsa. Last week I came back from Tulsa, and I can't say I did horrible. I didn't. I made top 16. But at the same time, that's it. Like, I didn't make top 8. I lost to Superman team. And I could say that there was a bunch of moments during the tournament in which I was like, yep, that was a bad idea. And I went 4-1 in preliminaries with my team, and my team isn't even. It's not hyper meta, It's not hyper meta, and the team was 2 Ant-Mans, Nick Fury, Fitz brings me a free monkey, and I ran Power Plant. So I'm sort of cheating without cheating, because I got 315 points in my build, and Nick Fury just Kamehameha blast people for stupid levels of damage. But the thing that came to me was the level of complexity of my team was way above the time that I had to prepare for the team. Not only that, the ability to baffle your opponents with numbers. I did not think that it would be psychologically universal, but it was psychologically universal. Every opponent that I played, after I got about 7 ants on the field, there's like a glazed look over their face that comes in. The first 2 ants, they don't care. The 4th ant, they're sort of like, what? You're just going to... They literally, out of 6 games, 4 of those games, those people said, are you just sitting back there making ants? And then the second question they said, I don't get any points for scoring ants. Okay? And the amount of baffling that goes through people's heads with just volumes of figures is insane. And it's something to think about as an actual tactic of buffer overload, because the buffer overload risk is a double-edged sword, because you can buffer overload your opponent, but if you're not fully ready as well, and you're balancing your objectives with the amount of actions that you have and everything else, then you can buffer overrun just as hard. So the main goal is to make your opponent buffer overrun before you do. And so, like, I had a couple of people just comment that they were finishing their game. They turned around and they were just looking at the games that were going on. They saw my team and wondered what the heck is going on. It's not clear whatsoever. Okay. So that's a key thing. But going forward, that buffer overrun, like, what is this doing? Where is this coming from? Why is that there? Is so stupid. So stupid. Because, and I'm going to put it bluntly, if you can do it, and you can do it well, not only does it shut down your opponent's ability to focus in on the flexibilities of your team, it makes it so that onlookers have a hard time to figure out what's going on with your team. Like a lot of people don't realize that. I've had a lot of people after the tournament ask me like, so what'd you do with all those ants? And then a couple times I was like, ancient Chinese secret. But that's a key element, is that your opponent can't figure it out. Your potential opponents can't figure out what's going on. At the same time, I see problems coming in heroclix because of them. I just do. And the main reason I see problems with them coming is that people are going to start getting frustrated with having to kill things and not getting any points. Like, you even see that with super rare Dr. Spectrum, not the prime that everybody uses, but the good one. Haha, see what I did there? Pretty much, he has a pet that respawns, but every time you kill him, it's 25 points. So you have to decide, am I going to bring Rock in with his stupid, values? And if my opponent KOs him, they're going to get points. Or am I, just not bringing him in? Like, that's a valid option. And I mean, that Dr. Spectrum is still good. Like, so good. So there's multiple elements, there for you to consider. I think the other thing for upping your game into the next level is realizing the limitations of local play versus finding people to scrimmage with. And the one thing that I know that happened to me was that my number one competitor stopped playing as much. And that I saw the effects of that. Now, some people might say, well, how is that an issue? Dark Logos, aren't you always like mentally kung fuing, heroclix all the time? And the answer is, no. Like, you get better by your sparring partners. And sometimes, like, I go out there and I'm like, yeah, boom, 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 super kung fu, yeah. And then other times I'm like, all right, so I just arbitrarily move this guy here, and so that has its points. But one of the main things where you're practicing, you got to practice with people that are able to go to these events, and then where you want to go, you can practice with people at that level or above, and then finding the or above is a lot harder. And the guy that stopped playing and I've said it before about Mega Lotus Man, is he's probably one of the best players in heroclix that never was, and it's a bunch of reasons. And just for his own admission, is that high level heroclix seemed like work, and he didn't want to do that. And his ability to play is excellent. And I've had several high-level meta players that I've known that come through Kansas City at some point in time play Mega Lotus Man, and it's just like, this dude's ridiculous. Why isn't he at Origins? Why isn't he at, Rock and all this other stuff? And it's not because of time or ability. It's just he sees it as work. And so you got to start asking yourself, if you want to get better, are you hanging around folks that just see it as work? Because you can have people that are highly skilled that just don't have the motivation to sort of just take it to the next level. I also play with another gentleman, Pat. He's a freaking crazy good player, but he likes playing casual. Like, he likes playing his themes. Where, the advantage of a guy like Pat is that he opens your eyes up to the skill level that you need to have to play certain types of teams. And he's given me challenges, with those teams to make me rethink about how I would approach different problems. And has even inspired me to be like, okay, well, what about this? Okay, well, I didn't like 90% of this team, but that figure right there, that's some shenanigans. What can I do about that? Or what can I do with that? And that little bit of difference allows you to stand out in the field, to create that buffer overrun moment with your opponent. But at the same time, you do need people to play meta, or at least meta figures, so that when you're in a rock, I've talked about it before, is your ability and your reservoir of residual information and familiarity allows your brain to skip over a lot of thinking. Your brain does so many assumptions. It's you don't even know how many assumptions it does. The moment that you sat down on your chair, or turned on this podcast, you made a ton of assumptions. Assumption number one, that your chair is structurally stable. Assumption two, that atomic breakdown will not happen for some random reason that we cannot scientifically explain. Number three, you assume the moment that you listen to this podcast is going to be in a language that you understand. Okay? And number four is that technology will function according to how you expect it to function. Now, why do you believe all these things and go off of these assumptions? Because time after time after time after time again, when you have gone through these activities, your brain is taken in like, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens. That's why some cats have like shell shock against certain major figures, and because they have all that psychological trauma from losing to it. Okay, and then other people just don't care because they don't face it, or they just beat it every time it comes out. So, sort of going back, is that you need people that play at a certain level, and it can't just be one person. While one person can help you scrimmage and train, there's one thing that I've learned to an extent. Having a partner to train with that knows you has its advantages, but your opponent won't know you, and your opponent has to make moves that make rational sense, not moves to F with you. Okay? And let me sort of emphasize that. I play with Jake. We play test. He will build teams to jack with me. Not necessarily always teams that people will play, but teams that he knows completely jacked with my team. And this is legitimate. Because you have to say, like, okay, if I'm facing uphill elements, what do I do? But at the same time, he'll also make moves because he knows how I play. The problem comes in is that I can't make moves consciously because I know how he plays. Now, you might say, well, I'm a high-level games, and then if I'm playing Patrick Yapko, then I know how he plays, and that's an advantage. And it's like, well, yes and no. Because here's the thing: if you tailor your play style and your practice to beat Patrick Yapago, and you don't play him, well, guess what? You've wasted a lot of time. Now, it's good to learn from him and why he makes his decision making. That's a lot better to help you improve your decision making. But if your goal is, I'm gonna beat Patrick, and yeah, that's not going down. Let's just say hypothetically, you go through a tournament, round one, you face Patrick, you beat him. Hypothetically, and then you go from the rest of the tournament, and your second round, your third round, you're on cloud nine because you beat Patrick Yapago, but you're not able to beat anybody else. So there's a problem there. So at the stage that I'm at, definitely going into World Cup, because like everybody else, it's like I could really use the money, and also I got roof issues. I'm like, I need to help my mom pay for the roof and getting that repaired. You look at it and it's just like, $5,000 is pretty good. And even looking at from my team perspective, it's like, okay, if we can get 3 of us in top 8 or whatever, and let's say we pull out $2,000 or $3,000, after we prize split and get everybody sort of taken care of, it's just like, hey, bringing home $500 or $800 is pretty good. That's a key element. But that's the thing is, you can't just be like, all right, I have a handful of people and I play with it and that's it. Now, some play groups are lucky that they have on average 8 to 8 or more players, in which half or more are meta-ish players. I know I saw a couple of venues in Chicago when I was there on vacation. That was just like great. like they had a lot of high level players. And even looking back at my time playing in Chicago real briefly, I had to say, like, wow, I learned a lot. There was a lot of solid competition, but more importantly, I could see that if you wanted to be pushed, you're not just having to solve for the top 1, 2, and 3 in your venue. You have to start thinking beyond them, and you have to start looking at the game as a whole. Because while something might be regionally popular, you still need to start saying, like, okay, what if a visitor comes in? We're a major metropolitan area. Like, hey, what do I do if this new player comes in? He just somehow plays something that's just off, meta. You start having to look at tons of different things that you didn't have to look at before. So, that element is, like, I think it's really lacking somewhat in a majority of clicks thinking with the average person. I'm not talking about podcasts. So don't somebody be like, Dark Logos was talking crap about podcasting commentary, because I'm not. The podcasting commentary that we have is at an all-time high. So it's definitely not a crapshoot at commentary. But the one element that we can see is that most people do not look at the game as the spectrum of the game of modern age, or let alone the spectrum of the game as it exists. Most people look at the game purely by a handful of figures, because that's the handful of figures that they see. This is the handful of figures that they think are dominant. These are a handful of figures that they feel completely shifts everything. And whether that's true or not, that's on them. But a majority of the time, it allows them to have this monoscopic view of the game that, and majority of the time, isn't correct. It's just not. A majority of the time, people are looking at the game from a perspective that's clouded by, not, I don't want to just say it's clouded by bias, because all games are clouded by bias, but more so than being clouded by bias, it's more so clouded by false positives. So they'll see Superman winning in their local area, and they'll think, well, Superman is the meta. No, Superman's actually the minute part of the meta. Okay, so someone might say, they'll see Iron Nail all of a sudden come up because Superman couldn't get away from an Iron Nail Orange Lantern battery build, or Iron Nail Lockjaw build for some reason. Okay, now you're at a different place. You're at a completely different place, because your opponent is now saying, like, well, this Iron Nail build the last 2 weeks has come up and shocked our Superman meta, so I don't know what to think anymore. Like, it's Superman or Iron Nail. And then they'll find some guy that kills Iron Nail real fast, and then they'll be like, the trifecta is Superman, Iron Nail, and let's just say Proxima Midnight, for example. Or then Proxima Midnight. That's the trifecta. And then they completely overlook the other bazillion things that can actually hurt it. So that, I know it sounds like, all right, well, Dark Logos, how do you take the next steps from here? Once you're in this position where you're starting to feel like you're stagnating, or more so, I think in my case, I'm the mad scientist in the back. I'm up here trying to turn your dogs into flying monkeys with 15 razor sharp talons that they can shoot out of their mouth. Like, that's what I do. Okay, I try to inform you of all of my mad scientist stuff that's going on. At the same time, I recognize that, yeah, this is mad science tree. Now, there's people that do that, standard science. and that's your common meta-analysis. Occasionally they make a wild hypothesis that turns out to be true or false, and then everybody else sort of looks at it like a scientific paper. It's like, oh, hey, did you see that new paper that was in Science the other day? It told us about, situational physics and how we can use it to create a new form of energy. Now, I think his math is wrong here, but I think the concept is sound. And that's a lot of your major player base, is that people will look at that and be like, yeah, I disagree with this, and this, but you have created a very solid sound framework to work from. Whereas me, I'm up here like, well, what's the 15 types of weird BS can I do to make my opponent be able to do nothing? Or at least I say, every time you do something, I can sort of solve for it. It's a different type of play style. And so I would say consciously, even though I know I'm a defensive and a shenanigans player, I've been trying to force myself to become a Triforce. And a unorthodox Triforce at that. And so because of those things, it creates certain problems. The first problem being that when you're trying to develop and being something that you're not naturally, you have hurdles to overcome. And then I even said it before, developing a Triforce is a way slower process than refining a person that's clearly, purely aggro or defensive or shenanigans based. It's a lot harder because the developmental process is a slow stairway that spirals upward versus like just slapping a jetpack on it and then sending it to space. It's a lot different. So the other element that comes in that I've also am aware of is getting feedback from people that go to like major tournaments. They're like, yeah, Dark Logos, I listened to your show. I took in all the information that you had. I made these decisions. I made this one disagreement with your one analysis, and then I went from there. So people were listening to all the major podcast shows, taking that information, and then coming to their own conclusions with their own playtesting experience. So, like, I give you just about 95% of my brain when it comes to heroclix. I really don't hold back. Some casters, depending on the situation, are giving you, I would say 50 to 75. And I mean, I'm just saying this from all honesty, from just having conversations with people. They're giving you about 50 to 75% of their real thoughts because they run teams. They run teams. They're not going to give up their homeboys tech. I mean, it's just like with me, with me coaching. If I coach someone and they're developing tech, you're not going to hear that tech on the show at all 90% of the time. If the person gives me permission, it's going to be after the event. Well, why is that? Because I have, client confidentiality that I need to maintain to stay in business. Just like I have all these other, high-level players that I have great conversations with off recording, off the record. And it stays that way. And anything that they bring up that is hush-hush stays hush-hush, yeah, it just stays that way. So, well, why is that? Because I still, do quote-unquote business with them. I still interview them. I bring them on the show. I let them talk. I give them a full, lane for them to explain their thoughts and views on heroclix. And if I was to say, hey, guy, give everything in your thoughts and views on heroclix plus what you're currently working on, no one would talk to me, let alone be on the show and have a real conversation. So it sort of becomes this new level of, for me, and I'm just talking about from my perspective here, is that when the scope of information that I have to pull from is the collective information that everybody else has to pull from. and I am part of that information bank. But there's a separate pool of information that I don't have access to, which is everyone's like private playtesting thoughts and whatever else. Then it creates this whole new like, oh, okay, I am a bit behind when it comes to certain levels of understanding. And then the other major thing that if you think about it, if a person listens to Clicks TV, starting over podcast, which you're listening to now, The Quarry, 2 clicks from KO, that's 4 hours in your week I'm not gonna lie, that's about 6 hours in your week that you've dedicated to meta heroclix. Okay, and I'll say that because the quarry can go from an hour and a half to like 2 hours. Okay, Clicks TV, it depends. Clicks TV and 2 clicks from KO, it all depends if they're doing set reviews or if they're doing games and whatnot. Mainly Clicks TV. I don't have a problem with Clicks TV's games. I just don't. Sometimes I skip over it because I'm just not feeling it. But whenever they talk about meta stuff, I'm always like all ears, listening at work, taking notes. They make me usually come to some cool conclusions. But when we look at it, you look at all that information that a person can absorb and get. It's pretty cool. It really is. It's pretty cool because 3 years ago, it was just really me. And then whatchamacallit? Crap, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was just really me. Then you start having Dial H come on. 2 clicks. I heard about 2 clicks a little too late after they were at least like 20 something episodes in before I heard about them. And you start looking at all these other, just cool stuff that people are generating content wise on the internet. Now there have been some other shows like Push to Regen. Push to Regen I always would categorize as competent casual. It's casual thought processes that won't get you screwed over in a tournament. It won't help you super win consistently, but it will definitely make sure you wouldn't get screwed over. Like that's how I looked at Push to Regen. And that's why I would point people to Push to Regen, because definitely as you're focusing on fundamentals, you need to be aware of some stuff that they were talking about. So anyway, sort of trying to wrap things up. Going forward, I know for me, I have to hit the lab a little bit harder, and then I also have to start understanding the multiple levels of a team working isn't just, oh, my team does this, but also the psychological effects that your team has on your opponents and the implications of that. I know it's a little bit Brave New World-ish, and I really don't push that element of let me jack with people's heads. Usually I try to keep it positive, like, stay in my head, work with my head. And I do know, this is just like one of the main reasons I don't ever cover table talk. Like, table talk, it can be very controversial. Like, super controversial. Because it's a legit tactic that's used in chess all the time. All the time. At the same time, it's also one of those things that if you use table talk, your results can get really, really good really, really fast over weaker-minded opponents. And that's really what it is. It allows you to get over on weaker-minded opponents, but also it creates an atmosphere where being friendly, being friendly, everybody looks at it suspect. They're like, why are you talking to me? Why are you being nice to me? I don't like that. Are you trying to get me distracted? Yeah, guy, you're trying to get me distracted. That's what's going on. You do this to all the people you play? So I don't want that hostility kicking into normal games. Like, that's just, it gets bad. So, anyway, I don't know. Like, definitely upcoming for me. I'm thinking about Rock World Cup and looking at the number of rock points. I'm at best I can get into is semifinals. Probably gonna be stuck in quarters. So I gotta figure some stuff out. definitely got to figure some stuff out, tournament wise, about what I'm gonna do and why am I playing what I'm playing. So. Oh, anyway, that's it for today. This week's episode. Again, sorry for the delays. Uncle Time is muy importante with my poor Spanish. Poor Spanish. And so, anyway, you can follow me on Twitter. It came from outer space and told me, man, you need to up your podcast game and your heroclix game. You can follow me on Start Over Pod on Twitter. I'm still taking ideas for potential contests I can do for a giveaway. I can't tell you the full details yet because I'm still waiting on other individual to hit me back up. But needless to say, that this contest potentially could be really, really awesome if I can give away what I think I'm going to be able to give away. And you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Tell me what you think about the meta right now with Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Are you tired of seeing Nick Fury with his two eyeballs just dangling out there in the open for everybody to see? Yeah, that's a little interesting. Also, let me know. Like, we're hitting close. Really, we're about to hit that time. How was your Age of Ultron? I think that's going to be the new theme of the month. Is how was your Age of Ultron month 4? Did you get a Quinjet? I know people are doing various things, so definitely something to consider and think about. All right, and you can check out the blog, startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. I know I need to put the buy list up. That's my bad. Like I said, a bunch of stuff has gone down. You can donate to the show through the blog. And also check out the t-shirts that we have. Like I said, once summer ends, the limited edition shirt with the white box there, Starting Over Podcast shirt, will be gone. So you probably have a week from when I put it up, this episode up, to get that shirt. If not, hey, that's the end of the shirt. There still will be Starting Over Podcast shirts, just not that special white box version. All right, that is it. If you're going to World Cup, hit me up. Let me know, and I will try to say hi to you. We're going to have like a media booth. I'm going to try to spend a little bit of time there. Maybe just say, hey, I am going to be recording the Quarry live from the World Cup. So, yay. Now I just need to get airplane ticket and pay for the hotel. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.